Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Robinson. Today I'm going to talk to you about getting a good posture and position if you play violin or viola. First thing that you should decide about when you're getting ready to practice is, am I going to be practicing while I'm seated or am I going to be standing up? For the most part, I would strongly suggest that when you're practicing by yourself or you're playing some kind of big solo that you are standing. It's better for your posture and position. But there are situations in which you're going to be seated. If you're in an ensemble, you're going to be practicing probably for an hour or so. So you have to be able to do both. So I'm going to start with ourselves in a seated position. And I'm just going to show you really quick. I'm going to show you that I have also over here, I have a chair under my violin. And that chair has arms on it. So that's not probably a good choice because I'm going to need room for my elbows. So I am seated instead, I am seated on a piano bench, which has no back, but you could use a chair with a back to it as well. The important thing though is that if you are seated in a chair with a back, that you're not actually, sitting back in the chair because you tend to slouch down when you do that. So when you're seated, you want to sit at the front part of your chair, nice and tall. You have to imagine there's a string that is coming out of your head and pulling you all the way up to the ceiling. So you want to have a nice straight back. You're going to save yourself a lot of pain and injury if you can sit with really good posture, even when you're not playing your instrument. Okay. The thing to worry about though most when you're seated and you're playing is that this elbow, for my violin and viola friends, this elbow, when you start to get fatigued, it's going to start to drop and it's going to collapse into your ribs, or it might even go all the way down to your lap and sit on your thigh. That's probably something you want to avoid to do. So we want to make sure that your instrument is well supported. Okay, so I'm going to move on now to doing this standing up. Okay, what we're going to do first though, when we're thinking about standing and playing, is that you need to be concentrating on your feet because you're putting all of your weight on your feet when you're standing. So here's what we're going to do with our feet. Let me see if I can show you this with my feet. Let's stand with your feet together. And then you're going to turn your toes out to make the letter V. V for violin, V for viola. Then you're going to find your left leg. And you take a little step forward with that leg only. So when you're in this position, you can bend your knees a little. You're very stable. Nothing's going to come along and knock you over because, that would be really bad, your instrument on the floor. All right, so we've got our feet in position. Now I'm going to add the instrument to this. Okay, back up a little. All right, so I do a bunch of steps with my students, and this may help you as well. So what I do is I take my left hand and I'm putting it on the shoulder of the violin or viola. My right hand is underneath on the bottom. And then what I'd like you to do is show me your instrument. Stick it out nice in front. Then be careful with this next step because you're going to flip upside down. So now your right hand is on the top. The next step I like to do is to get everybody get their instruments way up high in the air. And then down to your head. And a lot of people are like, why are you doing this? Oh, that's a weird looking hat. I'll explain why in a minute. We're going to slide past your ear, your left ear, down to your shoulder. Turn your head a little towards the violin and then nestle. Okay? Now, if your instrument's well supported, then you should be able to hold your instrument with just your head and your shoulder and your neck. So, you're going to take your hand, your left hand, bring it away. See if you can touch your shoulder on the opposite side. If you can do that without the instrument slipping, then you're well supported. Now, if you cannot do that, you may want to look for something to function as a shoulder rest. I use this kind of shoulder rest. There's others that are made of foam that you attach with rubber bands, anything that will work as a wedge, because if you think about it, the distance between here, where your jaw goes, and then the back of the instrument, it's only about that much. My neck is longer than that. So you need something to wedge in there to hold the instrument. No need really to run out to buy anything if you can find some kind of cloth and rubber bands that'll make it work. The important thing is that your hand is able to, or actually your head and your neck are able to hold the instrument without your hand. So I'm going to do this again, and you might be wondering, why do we have to go way up in the air like this? Well, I find that with my students, that if I get them to get their instruments up in the air, then I'm going to get them to make this nice flat violin. I find with students that, they go from underneath and they bring their instrument up, and then it ends up in front of their body. It ends up kind of drooping onto the side. So if I can get it way up in the air and then down to the shoulder, the chances of it being in the right place are much better. Okay, so we're going to adjust this down. I'm going to do this again seated. Don't need to worry about the feet too much, except for you want the feet to be on the floor. Don't cross your legs, okay? Keep everything in the right place. All right, so we're going to do the same steps again, and in rest position, then my bow would be on the other knee. And I have this instrument here. Spin it around. You can do this one-handed because eventually you're going to have a bow in the other hand. And turn your head. Turn your head. And then look, make sure that you have air around this elbow. Because if this elbow is stuck in your side or it's down on your leg, then automatically you saw how I drooped my instrument. And then cross over. I'm well supported, ready to go. All right. Next time we're going to talk a little bit more about the bow hold. That's it for now.